and welcome to our first session on positivity bias. The book we're looking at is was written by Rabbi Mendel Kalmanson. The focus is a positivity bias. And what I want to do with the class is I want everyone to participate. So we're going to share the ideas of what we're talking about, but I'm going to ask for your personal examples of this concept in your life. So please jump in and along the way, but also at the end, be thinking of a story you can add and share with us. And as you read the introduction, everybody has a bias. In fact, there's a Yiddish word for it. It's called Weltanschauung. Weltanschauung means the way you see the world. And the way you see the world is obviously a product of your education, your family upbringing, the people and experiences you've had along the way. I lived in Europe in the late 60s. I lived in Australia during the early 90s. I've spent at least 6 years of my life overseas. And I think every American should live overseas at some point just to get appreciation of value of what we actually have here. Because unless you've been out of the country for more than a year or two, you don't really see what we've got here. You're accustomed to this is your norm, and you haven't seen it how challenging a different world can be. And so I always encourage people, if you have the opportunity, but everyone has a Weltanschauung, a perspective, conscious or subconscious, but you've got one. And the question is being conscientious of it, being aware of the Weltanschauung that you come with. Currently, I serve in Civil Air Patrol as the Great Lakes Regional Diversity Officer. And one of the things we talk about is a quote, of course, from General Goldfein, who said that how important diversity is because it is your brain trust. You don't know what you don't know. It's completely outside your Weltanschauung, your perspective. And so you need to surround yourself with people that are vastly different from you in order that you can have the input from that brain trust, the tremendous amount of other insights. But along with that experience, and again, quoting General Goldfein, reading books. The more you read, the more life experiences you can gather in short notice. Mm-hmm. The Talmud says that a fool learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So by reading and learning by other people's lives and their stories and their mistakes and their growing pains and things like that, it gives us the opportunity to make some choices on how we want to see things. Now, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who's the topic of this book, is stories about of his perspective on things, right? So, keeping in mind, he grew up in Russia, lived through waves of pogroms. He lived through the killing fields of World War I. He survived the typhus epidemic, the post-war refugee crisis, the persecution of his father, who was the Rav of Yekaterinslav, the persecution of his father, and in fact, the exile of his father, who actually died in Siberia, in Alma Mater. He survived the Bolshevik Revolution. He lived through the communist destruction of Judaism and the Yevsektia, who were trying to wipe out Judaism. Survived World War II. Survived the bombings of, I'm forgetting the name of the ghetto. His brother was murdered in World War II. His grandmother was murdered in World War II. Other family members were murdered in the Holocaust. So when we talk about the Weltanschauung, the Rebbe's perspective of positivity, this is not something which he grew up wearing rose-colored glasses. This was a perspective that he made a conscientious choice to do so. And in one of the conversations, it mentions the book with the Beryl eunuch. The Rebbe said, I worked on myself to always look at things in a positive light. Otherwise, I could not survive. So it's a conscientious choice that we make. And of course, what I always think of also, there's another book called The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger, a survivor of the Holocaust, also protege of Dr. Viktor Frankl. And her book, she talks about, in that space between catalyst and action, response, between catalyst and response, is a choice you make on how to respond to the catalyst. And what she talked about is that, you can't control what they do to you, what the world does to you, but you can choose how you respond to it. And that's a choice. So we have a choice to conscientiously design the Weltanschauung, the perspective that we have of the world. And the clarity of this idea, looking at chapter 1. So in chapter 1, we talk about the beginning of the Rebbe's Nesius, his leadership. And after the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away, there were many Hasidim who were encouraging the Rebbe to step up and take the mantle, and the Rebbe refused. For a year, the Rebbe refused to take up the mantle leadership of the Lubavitch Chabad international movement. And finally, on the yahrzeit of his father-in-law and predecessor, the Rebbe finally held a public farbrengen, essentially accepting the mantle leadership. And it, almost as if not skipping a beat, he took the last public essay, public discourse of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and took that up and started from there. He started reviewing the Frierdiker Rebbe's Mimer, the Sicha, and Bas Lagani was the Mimer, the discourse. Mm-hmm. And every year on the anniversary of his passing on his yahrzeit, the Rebbe would go through that Mimer and teach another insight into that Mimer. So this perspective of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe blended into one is a choice of focus. 1951 at 770 Eastern Parkway, Brooklyn, New York, in the Lubavitch synagogue there, the Rebbe spoke, and he began with the Mimer of Basel Lagani Achasi Kala. I came into my garden, my sister, my bride. It begins with a verse from Shir HaShirim, the book of Song of Songs from King Solomon. And it begins to describe Basel Lagani, I came to my garden. The intent, the mission of the Jewish people is to take this world and reveal the godliness inherent in this world. God is hidden in the world. Our job is to bring out the godliness that's here and reveal it for everyone to see. And so when God describes this world, as it's described in Shir HaShirim, the book of Psalms, the Song of Songs, Bas Lagani, it's described as a beautiful garden. And not just a utilitarian garden growing wheat, but a beautiful garden with fruits and vegetables, colors, smells, tastes, just an absolutely gorgeous, beautiful garden. And that is this world, a luxurious garden. the challenge for us is to find ways to reveal the beauty inherent within this world, to be able to discover and watch and bring out the hashgacha pratis, the divine providence that we see in the world as we go through it. And like many other treasures, gold, diamonds, oil, sometimes it's digging, sometimes it's digging deep, sometimes it's arduous labor, sometimes it's not easy to see the world as a beautiful garden with wondrous, beautiful things. Sometimes it's tough. It's tough.
Are you talking
bring
about
out the beauty.
revealing it to someone else or to reveal it to yourself?
It starts with us.
So in our case, then, we aren't revealing it as much as we're discovering it.
Yes. Right. We have to see it, we have to discover it, we have to and then we need to share it. That's part of our responsibility, is to be a light unto the world, to focus on all the beauty and the good and the wonder. And I can't say it's a wonderful world without thinking about Louis Armstrong, Satchmo. I can hear
was thinking, you know what I was thinking of when you started saying that? I was thinking of Disney, that exhibition. It's small. That's just a small world after all.
Maybe small world after all.
My mistake. It's a wonderful world. All right.
But the reason, but you know what? The reason
to get that out of my head. Stop that.
Your work.
The reason I think of Satchmo, though, is when I think about the times in which he lived and the challenges that he faced. And yet he came on stage with a smile and said, it's a beautiful world.
Yeah.
If anyone had a right to complain and bellyache about all the tsuras, he certainly had. But it's not what he did. And so,
but he had good Jewish mentors.
Yeah, well, I think when he as a young man, I think he had one of his employers as a young man. One of the men he worked for was a Jewish man. I'm not sure exactly how he helped him, but it worked out that he had some help from some Jewish people.
It absolutely was, but but the focus here again is there is certainly plenty of things one could complain about, but our mission, our work, is to find the good, understand it, reveal it, mine it like gold, and share it. And share our positive perspectives on it and help others. I think there was once a little video that went viral about a New York cabbie. And a New York cabbie was insistent on smiling and greeting everyone that came into his cab, so that by the time they left his cab, they would feel good. And the video went viral, but it was about, how many lives could one New York cabbie affect in a single day? Right? So that's that positivity, to be able to share it and bring it out and reveal it to the world. And I think one of the other things that we'll find as we go through the book more is that there are times when things are difficult, times when challenges hit us hard. Can we still mine for the gold? Can we still gather ourselves together and reveal the good? When my wife found out that her only sibling, her brother, was tragically killed in a hang gliding accident, there's that immediate pain. But immediately she was looking at, he died when he was on vacation He died surrounded by the people he chose to be on vacation with. They were out in Hawaii in a place that he loved. He had been swimming with dolphins in the bay the day before. He died hang gliding. He loved to fly, and flying in an actual plane was not the primary choice. To fly free from even that was his primary. He loved to soar. So he was doing what he loved to do in a place he loved to do it with the people he loved to be with. My wife was focusing on all of the positive things that if you got to go, wow, what a way to go. Right? So there are people who could choose to go the opposite direction and have a right to do so. But we can also work on ourselves to always go for the positive, seek the positive, look for the positive, reveal it, bring it out, and share it. And so that's our idea, is to be able to banish the darkness, the difficulties of the time, by bringing in light. And one of the fascinating things that Hasidus talks about with light, you can't shovel out darkness. But if you bring in light, it dissipates of its own accord. That's our job, is to be a light unto the nations, is to be able to share the goodness and reveal the beauty inherent in God's world. And as is quoted in the book, life is a sacred art. We need to be able to bring that out. And that is the positivity bias that we want to be working with over the next few months as we go through the next chapter. So that's basically the focus on the introduction and chapter 1. I'd love to hear your thoughts or share an example that you faced. We talked about Satchmo and that example, but any personal stories you would like to share.
I tend to be a positive person to the dismay sometimes of others. When I go to work at night, the first thing I do is to say hello to everybody and say, I'm glad to be here, which not everybody will agree with.
And you're not in a stress-free environment.
I am not in a stress-free environment. And I particularly say that when the unit is obviously in chaos. And one person asked me once how I could always be smiling. And what I said was, well, somebody's got to do it.
Well,
and the fun part is the next time I got there, one person was smiling and she said, somebody's got to do it. Nobody was until you got here. So I took your place.
There you go. See, and now that's the beauty, is that you set an example and empowered others to follow the example as well. And again, like the New York cabbie, how many lives, could potentially be changed because of the choice you made to become in smiling and happy and to spread that joy. Good for you.
I can't quite keep up with her, but I've developed a habit when I'm outside the house or in an area like a store or whatever. Whenever I see a cap that says this person was in the military at some time, I will immediately go up to him and start chatting him up. And that invariably lightens the mood, particularly if there's a wife involved too, because they're just staying there with their mouth open. That has never happened to them. And I must say, I had to learn that behavior because basically I grew up to be a very shy person. And so that is actually a good habit I've developed over the years, and I intend to keep on doing it because it is quite rewarding.
God bless you. So well, let's touch on that. So obviously you go and you brighten someone's day by acknowledging their service and visiting with them and everything. But how has it changed your life?
Well, it made me, first of all, I'm not the shy person I once was. I was a fairly timid soul when I first arrived in these shores. I grew up in Germany, so there's already a positive development because I changed myself. I'm an American now. I'm not even a hyphenated American. I'm an American. That's a very positive thing in my book. And I did that after I served. And I served in the generation, the Vietnam generation, who were not welcomed home, who were oftentimes abused, and being the ornery son of a gun I am, when I was advised not to travel in uniform, I said, well, that ain't gonna fly. So I traveled in uniform, and have had many interesting conversations in various airports with various peaceniks. So yeah, you make the best of any situation you're in.
Well, good for you. Good for you for taking that opportunity and spreading that, and how it's impacted your own life by making that choice.
Oh yeah. If I know it's a Vietnam era veteran or a Vietnam veteran, I welcome them home. Period.
God bless
And it's
you.
always very well received.
I like to engage. I like to engage children in a grocery store with their mom. And sometimes the mom is stressed out. Sometimes she's just like, trying to focus on getting the groceries done and everything like that. And the kids are a little bit out of control sometimes. Sometimes they're fine.
Sometimes.
But I always engage the kids to ask them if they're helping their mom. And usually I'll ask them, well, when you go home, are you going to cook dinner for your mom? My last reply was some woman who was shopping and couldn't find what she wanted. And I told her to go to the store manager because they're probably just not ordering it, and ask them to order it for you. But she had two little boys, and I engaged them, and I says, how much are you helping your mom shop here? You picking out the right stuff? What are you going to cook her for dinner? And one little guy, and the little boy says, no, I don't do any of the cooking. I says, well, you can. Your mom can teach you. And the mom goes, yeah, I can teach you.
Good for you.
So, I was trying to make a connection between her and her kids, lighten up the mood, and make sure that the kids appreciated the mom and were more willing to help her.
Nice. Nice. Make another person's day that can last more than just a day.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully a lifetime.
Amen. Wrapping up this session for the chapter 1, and we'll continue again next week with chapter 2.